We live in a sad world where sports analysts are either so contemptuous, childish, and boneheaded that their colleague has to stop his whole segment to let the man-child talk, or are so evidently trying to say the most controversial takes possible just to arouse a reaction from an audience that knows how historically deceitful, wrong, and arrogant said analyst has already been. We live in a world where you can turn on Fox Sports 1, see a commercial for The Craig Carton Show, a show run by a man trying to position himself as some edgy voice in sports talk, even though there's an audio cue in the background with him saying, Tom Brady is a beast. Exactly like that. That's what we're dealing with here in sports talk nowadays. So it's nothing short of a miracle that First Things First exists, an hour-and-a-half show on FS1 that represents the very best of what talking about sports can offer. First Things First is hosted by Nick Wright, Kevin Wildes, and Chris Broussard. They're a dynamite trio of analysts that perfectly blend, in their words, cogent analysis with the type of fanaticism only sports analysts can conjure up. Each of them is marvelous in their own right, but only the combination of all three of them makes First Things First a step above their competition. Like Nick Wright's personality, his staunchness on his own takes, his seeming inability to admit when he changed his mind or was wrong, works because A, how consistently he is correct, but also because of how there's someone there like Chris Broussard who can call him out on the rare occasions he is being a hypocrite, and how the general audience knows when Nick is being disingenuous. Broussard, and I'm sorry to label him as this, is the punching bag of the show. Wildes and Wright do like to double team when Broussard is wrong, but he's also sneakily the most unbiased out of the whole crew. He feels like the people's analyst. He's open-minded, but just like the people, he has a tendency to count out teams or make guarantees on certain teams a little too early. He's imperfect, which is why we like him, but he also holds himself in an argument and is never so blatantly wrong about something that makes us doubt his credibility. And then you got Kevin Wildes, who doesn't neatly fit into one category as easily as the other two. He's kind of the straight man in how he pushes forward the show, but he doesn't feel like the biggest personality like Nick Wright does. He reads the headlines and all that, but he's also the funniest of the crew and is not afraid to be over the top, tongue-in-cheek, or self-deprecating. The key to the show's success, though, is balance. It works because Nick isn't always a zealot, Broussard isn't always being clowned on, Wildes is not always going for laughs. It is true that these three men's personalities almost perfectly neutralize each other's, but they also, in their own right, seem keenly aware of the personas that viewers have put upon them and their colleagues and approach arguments with those personas in mind. There is an element of showmanship to the program that is present in many other sports talk shows, but it's rarely mastered and almost always used to the show's detriment. The men on First Things First, like these other personalities, know that some of their takes are funny, that leaning into some of their takes will garner views and raise the entertainment value of the program. But unlike the other personalities, they have mastered the art of almost making caricatures of themselves and their opinions. And the key is in the almost. They almost make caricatures of themselves. And this is in no way a bad thing. This is not a necessary evil. If you wanted to watch sports analysts just present their own arguments with nothing to it, then you could watch any morning show on ESPN. But it's also about the personalities behind the opinions. And they understand that playing up certain moments, making certain things funny, is what's going to keep people engaged. The genius in First Things First is that they also know when to reel it back, when to go to the statistics and just get plainly to the heart of their argument. There is also an ingenious mixture of pure data-based and gut-based analysis where it seems the three men can almost always offer a counterpoint to show why they're correct, whether it's based on some statistical comparison that you would never have access to or would even think of, or it's based off of pure intuition and something a lot closer that you would say when you're just talking with your buddies about sports. The show doesn't get lost in the numbers, but it also feels a lot more grounded in reality than the likes of Skip and Shannon or The Herd. And, so importantly, their structure. Meaningful segments from Under Duress to Upset Alert to Nick's Tears, the show resists from being some freewheeling nonsense and actually gives us segments to look forward to week in and week out. And those segments allow for more jabs, more punchy, colorful commentary than the regular analysis of football provides where you're just reading off all the headlines from a given day. First Things First doesn't feel like a culmination or really a reaction to any trend in sports analysis. It just simply feels like the marriage of three smart and funny people, not captive to the teams they love, but savvy enough to exploit the relationship to the teams they are a fan of to the teams they are behind. It's evident that this is one of the only sports talk shows where the people behind the product actually care about what they are putting out. They churn, toil, burn that midnight oil, and that's why First Things First is the new king of sports talk.